Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to the PirateFocus Roundtable Zoomcast is what I think I'm going to call it. I'm Carol Keyser, and I'm the lead teacher for the Get Focused, Stay Focused program that we call PirateFocus here at Wheatland High School. And I'm going to have my team introduce themselves. Go for it.
I'm Jason Soderlin. I teach the upperclassmen.
I'm Ellie Landers, and I teach agriculture and a group of freshmen.
I'll go next. I'm Sarah Storm, and I teach a lot of different things, but my main focus is ceramics.
Brandon or
I'm
Ellie?
Brandon Moore. I teach U.S. history, and I'm teaching PirateFocus, freshman level PirateFocus.
And I'm Melissa Taylor, and I teach freshman PirateFocus and agriculture.
So the chapter that we're coming into is called Making Changes. And as we've talked about this, we realize that all of us come from a huge background, a very different background from each other. And all of us have had some sort of situation in our lives where we've had a dream or a vision of something, and we found ourselves in a position where we had to make a huge change to that dream or that vision. Something happened in our life where we had to make an adjustment. And I want you to take a moment to talk about that, and then tell us, how did that change affect you, and what were your feelings around that? Should I pick one of you to go first, or someone want to volunteer?
Pick.
It's that class. Brandon.
Oh, I knew it. I thought it was if you don't make eye contact, you're good. I thought that's how that worked. I don't know. All right. Okay. So a time in my life where I've had to, I've had a vision or a dream. I don't know if I don't know if I can like really speak to those types of things, but I do know that I had an experience where I felt like I needed to make a change. I was teaching at a school in Southern California, and everything was good, and I was, doing really well. And my wife and I had just had our first child, and actually our second child, and we were considering like what our next move was. Were we going to stay there? Were we going to go back to where we had been living previously? And we just didn't really know what we wanted to do. And so we took the chance and we relocated from Southern California up to this area. And so that was almost 3 years ago now. And it was like a big step for us. All of our family is down in Southern California. Our friends, our whole lives, we lived in in that area. And so for us to leave and try to start something new we took a big chance. For me, having friends and family were the things that I relied on, and the resources that I leaned on to sort of help us with a move and things like that. And so now we're a couple years on, and everything's really good, and we're really happy. But yeah, it was a scary time. So.
Mine's really similar. I was working for an organization called Young Life in the Bay Area, and we had just had our first son. And one night I came home, and my wife, I worked pretty late at night, and I came home around 11 o'clock at night, and my wife was crying. And we just kind of sat down, and I said, okay, what's going on? She's like, I live too far away from my mom. Being a first-time mom is really, really tough, and I've got to be closer. And you working really, really late. Most of the days, because I can be a workaholic if I want. I was working, 10-hour, 12-hour days a lot of times, and just not feeling like I was spinning my wheels a little bit. And so we kind of went through a process of trying to figure out what we wanted to do. It ended up that I had always dreamed about being a teacher. And so we started to look at that. To do that, both Melissa and I had to go back to school. So for a year's time, we kind of had to work, and there were some really hard times in there. But we had kind of made a commitment to building a great story. And so we were willing to kind of take some chances. And that's the thing that we learned a lot, is just sometimes you got to take a chance. And if you don't take that chance, what are you doing? What are you accomplishing? So now I teach, and I love it. 14 years in. And my wife's now an RN, a nursing director of a cancer center, which is really fun to watch.
I'll go next. So when I think about change, I kind of think of two types of change. I think of the change where you decide to make a decision and you kind of have all the balls in your court and you get to move forward and you seem to have a little bit more control. And then there's the type of that kind of is thrusted on you unexpectedly. I think we're all in the middle of that change now with this pandemic. And actually just recently, this school year, I was met with a very unexpected change. I went into surgery in February, and when I came out of surgery, I found out that I had a totally different surgery because when they opened me up, they realized that I had an autoimmune disease. So my quick half-hour surgery ended up turning into 4 hours, 9 weeks of recovery, and in a complete lifestyle change. So when I woke up in my very hazy state from surgery, I was greeted with my family and lots of love and lots of support, even though I was really, really scared. And they helped me do a lot of research because I had to completely change all my eating habits and a lot of my lifestyle habits so I could stay healthy. So even when it is unexpected, you can still kind of get those balls in your court if you are supported and you kind of make a plan and you realize that, you know, no matter what happens, if you're committed to having a good life, you can have one.
I had kind of a combination of both of those things happen at the same time, where I was making a choice, but then something huge happened that I didn't have any control over. I was a youth director at a church for a good decade, and had started to kind of make the decision that because I had small kids, and I had, at the time I had a 9-year-old turning 10, a 4-year-old, and almost 1-year-old. And I decided I needed a job where I could spend more time with my own children rather than with everybody else's children. So I had made the decision to resign and move on to some other business. I wasn't sure what, but then in the middle of that resignation, my middle son was actually in drowning, and we lost him. And I realized the 20-year anniversary of that is coming up next month. And so I'm kind of going, wow, all this changed 20 years ago. And now again, we're kind of in the middle of a really weird change. It was a time of life, worst thing ever, where I needed to change jobs, and my family was changing also, and things were chaos, and it was scary, and it was depressing. And, you know, I had to rely on the love and the friendship of my family and friends, and just rely on them to really be there and let me know it's going to be okay. You're going to get through it. And it was just a crazy, crazy time. It takes time sometimes to get used to those changes, but on the other side of it, some great things career-wise came out of that. And I've been able to sit with other people who have lost children and just be able to really understand kind of where they're coming from with that. And that's been a blessing. So.
You or me, Taylor? All right. So when I was trying to think of a change I've been through or a choice I had to make, like Mrs. Storm said, I tried to think of something when I was closer to your age. I like to think that I'm still there, but I'm realizing the older I get that I'm not. But I realized that something that happened when I was a senior in high school. So I dreamed of going to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. That's where I was going, nowhere else, although my mom made me apply other places. And then I got the letter in the mail that said I was not accepted and I was waitlisted. And so I remember being totally crushed because that was that's the only place I wanted to go. I didn't have a backup plan. It was like, that's what I wanted. And then with the support of my mom and my dad, I was able to realize that my dream could still come true. It just might have to be a little delayed. And so I went to junior college. And if I hadn't gone into junior college, I wouldn't have been on the Yuba College speech team, which I got to go to nationals for. And I went to met some of those teachers and professors that I think I almost might have even learned a little bit more from. Because, like, for example, my math class, like I really, really liked my math teacher, Miss Heaton. And she was taught a class of 30, right? But if I would have taken that class maybe at Cal Poly, it might have been a class of 200. I don't know. But it just makes me realize that that happened for a reason. And then when I got my acceptance letter, a year later, I cried like a baby because I was so excited that it actually happened. But it just was delayed. And so although my dream didn't come true right when I wanted it to, and I had to stay home for 2 years, and you know, I got to have a job, I got to save money, and I got to still live that dream. It was just a little bit more delayed, I guess you would say.
So my change is pretty similar to a lot of yours as well. We were living in Reading, and I was student teaching, and my husband was in an internship teaching at West Valley High School in Cottonwood. And we weren't very close to family, and West Valley was laying off teachers every year, multiple years. Teachers would be teaching there for 8 years, and they still would get laid off, and so it was a bad decision. And so my husband at that point decided he was going to change careers, and he was going to join the CHP Academy. And then that meant that I had to find a job somewhere else, and we found the job at Wheatland High School and came down and interviewed for the job and moved to Wheatland High School. And that made it where we could live a lot closer to my family and be very close to them. So we bought a house in Plumas Lake. At this point, my husband was unemployed, and it's a very long process to apply to the CHP Academy. And so he entered the CHP Academy, and while he was waiting for that whole process to start, he started a long-term subbing job at Lyndhurst High School because he still had a credential and was still able to do that. And he spent some time at Lyndhurst High School long-term subbing. And at that point, I was starting my first year at Wheatland, and we lived in Plumas Lake. And during that time, we both realized that the lifestyle of being a CHP officer and being a CHP officer's wife would be a very stressful one, and it would be a hard life. And if he chose to make a different decision, then he would continue to be a teacher. And so instead, the day he should have checked in the CHP Academy, he went to an interview for a new teaching job. And we lived in Plumas Lake for 3.5 years. We expected to only be there about 1 or 2, and one thing led to another, and we couldn't find any houses anywhere else to live, and we wanted to live with a little bit more property and out in the country. So we kept looking, and finally we found a piece of property where we had to start fresh. The only thing that ever had been on the piece of property was one tree. It did not have a well. It did not have any water to it whatsoever. It didn't have any PG&E or power or electricity. It was bare ground completely. And so we started building a house, and built a house in about 6 months. And we now live in Yuba City in that house. And since then, we have a little baby girl who now turned 18 months. And so we've had a ton of changes very quickly in our life. But it was definitely a big change for us to decide to have a very similar schedule and both be teachers. But it would have been a different lifestyle, and he would have made a lot more money if he would have become a CHP officer. And so we would have had a different lifestyle on that side as well. But in the end, we really had to turn to the support from our families, and our family support is never ending. And it's one thing that no matter where you are or what's going in your life, those people will always be there. And whether it's your family that's your blood family, or your family that are your friends that you've known forever, and they can be that support for you and provide that shoulder to cry on if that's what you need, or give you that push when you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, or you need to just have a reassurance in the decisions that you're making. Sometimes we have a little why in the road or a shift one way or another when it comes to the paths that we choose. But in the end, it always goes with your heart, and lean to your family and friends for that support.
Amazing way to wrap that part up. That was awesome. Anyone want to add to our changes in the past? Any unexpected good that came out of that? You said you and your husband work on the same schedule now, and that's important so you can spend the time with your kids. What other kinds of unexpected good things came out of it?
I think for me, I never, growing up with parents that had their own issues and not really having grandparents around a whole lot when I was doing sports. Like I was the kid that didn't have somebody at my game or something like that. I absolutely love my in-laws are at every game. My in-laws, it could be pouring down rain and they got the little umbrella. And I become so close to my father-in-law, and not having a dad around. Like I appreciate my in-laws so much. Like my father-in-law, he will not let me like walk away without giving me a big hug. And that just, I mean, I think we talk about the relationships, and I think sometimes you don't realize the friendships and the relationships you're getting when you make that huge change. Because we weren't seeing them very much when we lived in the Bay Area, but now that we live 40 minutes away, we see them all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'll go next again.
I would say let's go around in a circle, but I know everybody's screen has a different order. So
yeah, I know. I was going to suggest that too, and then I was like, oh, that won't work. I've had a couple really unexpected good things to come out of my diagnosis. Number one, when I woke up from surgery, I didn't realize how much I had been living in pain, literally since I was like 14 or 15. And just kind of thought that pain was like, oh, everyone's body's like that. So it was really odd to wake up after surgery and then suddenly like have all these like pain pockets just suddenly vanish. So that was awesome. So that was very unexpected. Didn't even realize that was an issue until all of a sudden it wasn't there. And then I think a second good thing that came out of it is I really had to not force myself, but in order to have a healthier existence and healthier life and to kind of combat autoimmune disorder that I have, I've really been taking stock in like what I'm putting into my body. So I've been making very healthy choices, cutting out stuff that's really bad for me, working out more, which I used to be really, but was always in kind of so much pain. I always just attributed to it. I'm getting older. My body doesn't work that way anymore. And so what's been really great is in the last month, since I've really healed from my surgery, is that I've been able to do all these workouts that I like haven't done since I was like in my 20s. Like I never thought that I'd really be able to really even run again, because running would hurt. Like everything would always just hurt me. So it's been so nice to be able to work out and kind of push my body in a way that I haven't gotten to do in, years and years and years. So yeah, very unexpected and very grateful for it.
anyone else? What other unexpected blessings or unexpected count? Good. Okay. So right now we're in the middle of a huge change. None of us expected to be sitting at our homes right now talking like this. This whole year we've been able to walk across campus and see each other, and we've been able to hang out with our kids and let them come in and talk to us. So this has been a really huge adjustment for all of us. What have been your biggest struggles in the last couple weeks working with this adjustment?
Carol, can you
Totally
say
just
that
broke
last
up.
part again? You were breaking up pretty
Yeah.
bad.
Oh, sorry.
We only
Okay.
heard like the last few words.
Oh,
Just so you know.
so we haven't expected having to work from home and having to relate to our students, just like to check in with our students via internet and texting and stuff. What are some of the biggest struggles you've had in making the adjustments to this situation?
So
I'll
I'll
go first
start.
with this.
So
Let me tell you.
I'll start. So this is more personal. I have a senior in high school, and so in November, a few days before we played West Valley in a football game, he tore his MCL, could not play at full strength, and really, really struggled. But he kind of said, I still have track, and I'm going to bust my butt, and I'm going to do everything I can to get myself where I need to be. And he has like done everything, just worked and worked and worked and worked and worked. And so he got to throw in one meet, and he kind of, because he knew that this was kind of just an early season meet, he kind of just went through the motion of kind of getting a throw in and kind of starting his year. But that was it. And it's really weighing on him. He was 12 feet away from breaking the school record in discus. And that's tough on him. So personally, it's hard to watch someone I'm extremely proud of. And I just, when I dreamed about being a dad, I look at my relationship I have with my son, and it's exciting that the relationships we have and stuff like that. And, so it's hard to watch him. Because he is in that class, there's a whole group of them that I'm really close with, that I've had conversations with and talked to. And that's really tough, because I get text messages all day long from not only them, but their parents of what we're doing. I was helping plan the senior trip, and that doesn't look like it's going to happen. And, my kids that I've coached in youth football are going, I'm not sure I'm getting to walk at graduation. And I think the hardest thing for me in that process is I kind of feel hopeless. I've always been someone that I just take charge and, let's make this happen. That's how I work. That's okay. That might not work, but let's figure out how we can make this possible. And I can't do that. Like, I'm totally at mercy with other things. And all I can do is continue to stay positive and encourage kids and talk to them. But that's been really, really difficult. I'm really, really, I'm a relationship kind of person. I like to build relationships. I like to ask people how they're doing. And I don't really feel like I can do that a lot of times. And that's been tough on me. Just kind of, some of those relationships, watching people struggle and watching where me not be able to help them, that's been huge for me. I'm just kind of having to work through that.
Go next.
Yeah.
So I am an extrovert. I am a, high-fiving at the door kind of person. And I think not being able to check in with each of my kids every day, like a visual check-in, is really, really hard, and kind of makes me feel a little disconnected almost. And so almost a little bit alone, although I have a 2-year-old that keeps me very aware that I'm not alone. It just gets to be draining, because I get energy from my students, and I get energy from, your stories, or helping you, or just having those one-on-one conversations at my desk, and not being able to have that in an odd way, which you think that would be more draining, but it takes away my energy, not being able to have that. And so I think I just miss that connection. And although, yes, I'm still answering your emails and I'm Zooming and I see kids' faces, it's by no means the same way as it is when you actually are one-on-one with a person. You give them that high five or that, pat on the shoulder and say, hey, it's going to be okay. And when we're in Zoom meetings and kids are asking, kind of like Jason was saying, some of these questions that we don't have the answer to. And although I want to stay positive, I like to think that I'm a very positive person, it's very hard to stay positive when you really don't think the solution or the answer is going in a positive direction. So I think that it's kind of terrifying for me as well, because this is the senior class here. I came in with these guys. And so I think for me, I'm really close to those seniors because I started with them as freshmen. And as a teacher, for whatever reason, I've taught like freshman, sophomore, and then I kind of moved my way up to juniors and seniors this year. And so it's just when they're asking those questions, it's like, no, we are walking. Like, we are supposed to walk at graduation together. Like, I'm almost like I'm a part of this class in some weird way. And so I do try to stay positive as much as I can, but yet I feel that, you know, distance almost it's growing with my students because I don't have the answers and I'm not getting that one-on-one time, which is very, very challenging.
Yeah. Melissa.
Hardest thing for me is all of the changes and the changes that are happening so quickly and not knowing the answers and knowing that there's no way for us to be in control of any of these answers and knowing that there's someone somewhere else that is going to make those decisions and we will have no input on those whatsoever. And then on top of that, we as teachers are always the ones that have the answers. And so when the kids come to us or when you guys come to us and you have questions, we can't answer them and we don't know what the end result is. Like every day I get a question of, when are we coming back to school for sure? Or how long will this digital learning really be occurring? Or are we going to have this event? Or are we going to have this event? What's it going to look like if we do have it? And all of those things and all those unknowns are probably the hardest things to deal with. And knowing that in this situation, in this COVID-19 situation, we cannot make the decisions ourselves. And so even if we do put a bunch of interest and a bunch of effort into things, we still don't know the outcome. And so it's hard to make yourself make that dedication into an event or your online learning or any of those kind of things because you don't know how long it's going to last. And so you have to change that mindset a little bit and say, you've got to live day by day and know that you push it to the best of your abilities right now and deal with what we've been dealt because we cannot have an influence in these decisions right now.
Yeah. But we can work on how we react to them and try to stay as positive as we can, even in the midst of really crummy things being thrown at us or decisions that we're not happy with.
Yes.
Yeah. Anything else?
Well, I'll go next. I mean, I would definitely echo all of those things. I'm a very outgoing person, so it's been really hard for me not to, I mean, I connect and I talk to my kids, but a lot of times I feel like I'm kind of waiting around for them to text or email me back. Whereas like in the classroom, I can just walk over, like check on what they're doing. I can start a conversation based on something I've seen. And so I feel like I'm kind of in the dark right now, even though I'm having Zoom meetings, even though kids are texting me, even though kids are emailing me, it doesn't feel as connected as the classroom. And then on top of that, I always think of my like home as like my kind of like my sanctuary. Like, you know, I come home from, you know, giving my all at work and I get to kind of have this place of peace and I love being at my house. And now, after like 3 weeks of not leaving my house, like these walls are starting to kind of creep inward and I'm kind of looking around like, you know, it's a nice prison, but it's starting to really feel like a prison. So that's been really hard for me. I do really poorly with change that like impacts me that like I don't have a say in. While I've had a lot of change in my life, I don't mind change that I'm perpetuating when it comes out of nowhere. I have a hard time with that. I like to be in control. I like to do things my way. So having parents that are a little bit older, having in-laws that are a little bit older, myself having an autoimmune disease, my sister who has asthma, like I feel like I'm just scared all the time because I'm like, don't leave your house. Like you could catch this thing. And if you catch it, like you're in that vulnerable population. So trying to just kind of deal with that and take deep breaths and just kind of give it up to the universe and realize that, you know, the reality is that none of us have control really in anything in our lives. So just trying to make peace with that. And then also, I know that kids feel like they've been robbed, and I get that because I feel like I've been robbed too. Ever since I was in high school, all I've ever wanted to really be is a ceramics teacher. And while I love history and social studies, and I went and got 2 degrees in it, like my love was always ceramics. And I like worked my butt off this last summer and this last semester, finishing up that credential. And it's like the whole second half of my like first year as a ceramics teacher is just like gone. So that's, I get that feeling of feeling like robbed. I looked forward to forever, and it's finally happened in like the school that I just absolutely adore and love, and I'm so grateful to be back at. And yeah, and just like in one weekend, it was like I feel like it was just taken away.
Okay. What are some of our best resources that we've found during this time?
Zoom.
No. For those of us that are extroverts, we're like, sorry, I have a Zoom meeting. I get to talk to people.
I
find myself opening my Zoom meetings early, just hoping someone's going to show up to talk to me.
Well, I will say, and Jason can attest to this, I am literally the worst person when it comes to knowing about technology. I am terrible. I have a hard, like, things will plug in and I'll follow the directions and then I'll just walk near it or breathe near it and the machine won't work. So having to rely 100% on technology and learn new apps and learn like the, you know, the Edmentum and really rely on my Google Classroom way more than I've ever had to rely on. I mean, my heart was beating fast that Monday morning. It was like, oh man, I got to bring it today and I got to figure this out now. So I think that's been a challenge, but I also think that that's been a huge resource that had you asked me a couple months ago, like, how much do you implement technology and utilize it? I would have been like, not that much. Like, just come talk to me. I'll talk to you. You don't need to send an email. Like, it probably won't go through. So having to use all these resources that I was really uncomfortable with has been really cool. So it's like Zoom, email, texting, Google numbers, which I didn't really even know was a thing until like last week. And just, yeah, using all these new technologies that I haven't really utilized. Oh, and if you don't know, there is a cool app called House Party. Do you guys know what this is?
No.
Oh my gosh, it's amazing. So I was talking to Miss Harris because her and I are, you know, best friends. And I was saying, you know, we should use a Zoom meeting to do like a game night. And I was like, I don't know how that would work, but maybe I could have a game and you can have a game and we could like, I don't know, figure it out. And then one of my other friends was telling me, oh, that exists in this thing called House Party. You can just, it's kind of like Zoom. You upload it and it'll have games that you can play with your friends when they're like in separate areas. So like we could do a house party with all the teachers and like, Carol, you can be at your house and I can be at my house, but we're still playing the same game.
Okay.
So I think that's been a resource that's I haven't used yet, but I'm very excited to try.
Count me in when you do it.
Done.
What other resources? What good is coming out of this?
Zoom, Zoom, Zoom. I didn't know anything about Zoom until it got thrown at us. And I think you as students don't know that maybe you could host a Zoom by yourself and it's really easy. And then you just send people the 2 numbers, the password and the entry code, and could sit in a Zoom and at least see each other's faces. And then my other resource has been going outside and getting some sunshine and really getting that little bit of work in and just being able to enjoy the outdoors a little bit more. Even then, I was able to, as a classroom teacher, but also just as my way of like feeling healthy and feeling like something besides being locked inside all the time, because this isolation is really getting to all of us.
Yeah, I would actually say mine is Google Classroom. So I've obviously known what Google Classroom is. I just never took the time to really try to use it and to actually use it as a platform where kids can get their assignments from. And so I think that this has definitely pushed me into Google Classroom, which has been really nice because I've learned a lot from it and I've been able to see the benefits. And so definitely, I think something I'll probably take into my teaching next year when we're back in the classroom or whenever that may be. I think I'll still want to use Google Classroom. And then I'm just going to echo Melissa. My garden has never had less weeds in its entire life. So I go out every day and I just pull some weeds and like walk around. And I have some fruit trees. And so having that space to go out and like just prune if I need to, or plant some herbs and stuff, I think has been really, really nice to have that break from, like Melissa said, from the inside, the walls of my house that are just, I'm over them.
I'm really enjoying that you students are getting the opportunity to really practice some employable skills. When you're on Zoom, you're in an interview. There's all the time now. When you go off into some post-secondary training, be it community college or trade school or universities and college, you're going to be using platforms like Google Classroom. I've seen some colleges actually use Google Classroom, but others use Blackboard and Canvas that are very similar. Now you're going to have the opportunity to say, oh, I know what this is. I can do this. I can transfer skills from Google Classroom over to
Carol, you're cutting out again.
Yeah, Carol, it's all breaking up. I'm so sorry.
Technology. Yay.
It's good skills to learn. That's what I'm saying. It's going to do you well later on. Am I okay now?
Yeah, you're good now.
Okay.
I want to say something.
Yeah.
I want to say to all you students, your teachers are just adorable. I just love all of them, man. It's really nice. I hope that you're enjoying experiences. It's just really cool to sit, I think, and just hear like a little bit of a different perspective. Obviously, we don't have all of these teachers, but you have one of these teachers, and it's just really neat to sit and listen to you guys talk about your stories and, you know, the struggles and also the positive things that you guys are pulling out of this. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
And I love that we're all here for each other and that our students can see that we support each other, but we also support them.
I will tell you, just having the conversation today, knowing that there's 5 other teachers that, you know, understand what I'm going through, and, you know, because I know every day I stand out in the hall and Melissa Taylor's out in the hall. And when Storm was outside, it was across the hall from me, she was always outside and yelling at Landers down the hall. And, you know, I think a lot of times, you know, we think that that's just normal. And now that that's not possible, just hearing how you guys are kind of going through that's it. I've appreciated it a lot of just kind of knowing that, okay, there's a bunch of us that are in this deal. Because the thing is I don't think teachers, a majority of us get into teaching because we hate kids. We just truly want to see our kids do well. We want to see our kids just do better than we even imagine them. And so even I have to say that one Zoom meeting, I had a student that, my gosh, I've been trying to get her to work in all year, and she came to the Zoom meeting. It was like, hey, how do I get this stuff done? I'm like, you didn't ask that question before. What happened? She's like, well, I want to graduate. That's good. Let's roll with it. I don't care.
It's nice to hear their voices.
Yeah.
And see their faces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think one thing this whole pandemic has taught all of us, students, teachers, I think everyone in the world really, is to really be grateful for the things you take for granted. Like I always took for granted, like going to work Monday through Friday. And even though I'm still working, it's very different. And I will say I don't like it anywhere near as much. Like I miss my classroom. I miss the normalcy. So I think it's brought out a big positive in thinking of all the little things like having lunch in the art room and having all those kids, you know, have their club meetings in that room, even though it was loud and chaotic. Like I miss all of that. So taking all those little things and, you know, hopefully when we get through all this and get to go back, none of us take all those little things for granted. And then I think on the flip side of that, this monumental change, while it always brought out the best in some people, I've seen some pretty terrible news stories. I also seen some really great ones where people out of their way to be kind to strangers and people they don't know and people in their community, which, you know, when something big happens, I mean, that's you kind of fall into those two groups, either the naysayers or the helpers. And it's been really great to see so many helpers out there, because I don't think they tend to get enough credit.
And we as your teachers are lucky that we still have jobs, and even though it's working from home and there's the challenges that come from that as well, we know there's a lot of people out there that were not as lucky to be able to keep their jobs in this situation and to be able to go to work.
I celebrate the fact that, you know, at one point I was running out of toilet paper and my neighbor goes, "Oh, I got some for you." You know.
Man, that's worth more than gold. You got a good neighbor.
Yeah. I like he handed me like 8 rolls. Here you go. You know, I want to make sure if you pick some up, just let me know. I'm like, yeah, I have found some sense. Yeah, it's good.
Okay, guys.
Don't flush paper towels.
And,
Hey, let me just say, can I just add one thing real quick? Can I just add one thing?
Yeah.
Look, this is like for the students that are like struggling with internet connection and having to share a computer and all this like stuff, man, is like, I'm super sensitive to that. I got 3 little kids that, you know, 2 of them are in school. One of them's in preschool, and the preschool is like sending videos for them to do. And I'm like, I got my 7-year-old is breaking down crying because she's struggling with her math, and I'm trying to help her. My wife's trying to teach her classes, and I got my 80-year-old grandma over here like, you know, hey, I need you to go to Costco for this. And it's just like, it's crazy, right? And so I'm really sensitive to the students that are struggling with the technology. I mean, listen to all the teachers saying, I mean, talking about Google Classroom and wanting to bring that in the future, or Zoom meetings or whatever it is. You know, it's really hard to wrap your head around all of it. So give yourself a little grace and a little, you know, and we understand as your teachers, you know, and if any other teacher has a problem, send them to Mr. Sutherland and he'll take care of it. No, but really, like, you know, give yourself some, you know, it's okay. And we're here to help you. And we're all here to help you, and be patient with yourself and be patient with us too. But I totally am like in the weeds with these kids all day, dude. I just want to go back to work. That's it. I'm done.
Well, and if anyone is at home and you have to share a computer with a sibling, there's more Chromebooks down at the school. Contact the school Monday through Wednesday, 8 to 12 in the morning, because they have more Chromebooks down there and they can lend them out so that you don't have to try to be them.
And I would say this. I live in Wheatland. I live here. If you don't have one, send me an email. I will deliver it to your house. I'll go to the school, pick one up for you, and deliver it to your house. Because really, I'm looking for adventures at this point to get out of my house. And really, that would be well worth my time. You don't have to pay me for gas. You know, maybe a roll of toilet paper. Who knows? Yeah.
Can I just add real fast? So even though next week is spring break, the library's still open Monday through Wednesday, because I had a couple students ask me about that today. So next week during spring break, even though it's spring break, which seems odd because we feel like we've just had these weeks off, you can still go to the school and pick up a Google Chromebook in the library.
Good. Okay, so I think we're going to stay on for just 2 or 3 more minutes, and I'm going to stop the recording, let the students go back to what I say, my students.